So we kind of have a pokeball going here. It's fairly high subdiv. If you want to, while we're dynamically previewing this thing, if this thing isn't quite as round as you would like it, oops, just go in here with your move and even this out. I wonder if there's going to solo mode, and I can also push this back. Looks like it's not quite out. And I can hold down Control Shift and isolate that. And with these two polygroups showing again, I'm going to do a polygroups, auto groups, and then Control Shift to bring everything back. Control Shift to isolate this one. Go to the side, grab one of those verts, and then hold down Shift and just move those back so they're perfectly flat. So when we were finagling those vertices, it kind of threw off our roundness. So one thing I'm going to do is, I know this is right in the middle of my world. So under Transform, I'm going to go X, and we'll try Y. Yeah, so with X and Y symmetry, well, it looks like it's a little bit off when we sliced it. Let's see what it does. Okay, it actually does move our top and our bottom. If for some reason it's not, we'll just do X symmetry. You can just manually go in and like mask all those points. Hold down Control, go into Lasso, grab all these points, Control click to invert that, and now we can just kind of move these, or maybe even better, rotate them into more of a circle. So again, on the bottom part here, I'm going to hold down Control, grab all these points, Control tap to invert, and then I'm just grabbing the center piece here, and then I'm rotating these around from the center just to kind of make them a little more circular here. Okay, so now when I hit D, I get a little bit of a better circle. Sorry, that was kind of sloppy, but you know what? Sometimes that happens. If you don't, so see how as I'm going over different surfaces, my cursor's kind of wobbling. If you don't like that, go to Preferences, Edit, turn off Align Cursor to Surface. And now we can go in here and just kind of do a really quick kind of clean up and just Alt Tap to make everything a little bit cleaner on our circle there. Okay, now of course alternatively what you could do is just do a bunch of Dynamesh stuff. That's certainly an option, but I figured for Z-Modeler and panel loops and stuff, you guys would probably want to be a little bit more hard edge. So now that we have that, let's go into our cylinder here. I'm just going to Alt-Tab that, go into solo mode, and for this one, you know what? Let's just do our crease tolerance at 30, hit crease, hit dynamic, and it looks like that one worked great. If you want to be a little bit fancier, what you can do, go into solo mode here, I'm going to hit Shift D to go out of dynamic preview, hover over an edge, we're going to do a bevel, edge loop complete, and we can just kind of bevel this edge a little bit, and now I can do a crease poly group underneath our geometry crease menu. We'll do a crease PG. That's still crease from our crease tolerance there. Hit D, and now we've got like a little beveled edge here. So now if you're ready, you can actually take this into render. One more thing you could do if you wanted to is Alt-click this top one, and you're going to see in here you have a whole edge ring in here that you can kind of play with, or even this middle one here. So we can hold down Control-Shift, and that's the best way to do this. Let's grab our Select Lasso, Control-Shift this, well first do Shift-D to go out of the dynamic preview, and then click this one here, and then hold down Control-Shift and drag to isolate just this edge ring, poly loop we have. And then hold down Control-Shift and tap to get rid of the pink one. And then with just this one showing, I'm going to hit Control-W just to give it, and if you want to, you can just hit Control-W to kind of keep cycling through the different colors. Control-Shift to bring everything back. And now we know that's its own poly group. So we can go to QMesh, Polygroup All. We just pull this down, and that'll kind of give us like a little insert, little step down if we want to, just to be a little bit fancier. It's kind of up to you, or you can even do the opposite and just QMesh up. Now, it's going to cause a little bit of problems with here, but if you want to go all the way up, it'll actually go all the way up to here, or you can add an edge loop in here, which may throw off our curvature, so I'm not going to bother doing that. And kind of maybe pull this down just a tad. It depends on how much detail you want to do. I mean, you can go detail crazy now when you start box modeling the stuff. So now I'm just going to go through, I'm going to hit Shift-D, and I'm just going to kind of turn on polyframe, and make sure everything's okay. It looks like we're having a little bit of a weird smoothing issue because we have a triangle right here. But it's not too terrible. I don't think it's really worth cleaning up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit D to do our dynamic preview. And if I'm liking how this is looking, one thing I can do is go ahead and start subdividing this thing and throw it in a key shot. So what I'm going to do is hit Shift D to turn off dynamic preview for all these things. Just kind of tab through and then do just Shift D. And now I'm going to go through and give it actual subdivision history. So with each one of these, I'm going to hit Control D, and that'll give me subdivision history. And if I go into solo mode, you can kind of see as I'm hitting Control D, it's getting finer and finer resolution. Now, if I go over here to geometry crease, I can do an uncrease all. And now when I divide, it's actually going to give me a slight bevel. So you can kind of use that to kind of give you a little bit of a nicer look. If it's not quite beveled enough, you can undo a couple times. And now do an uncrease all. And then divide. And that'll give you an even kind of smoother bevel. It's kind of, you know, something you got to kind of feel out. So I'm just going to hit Control D till about subdivision level 4. Do an uncrease all. And then divide one more time. And then do the exact same thing here. So I'm going to go Control D until I get to subdivision level 4, and then we can do an uncrease all, divide one more time, and then on here we'll do Control D. And you know what I want to do on this one actually? Let's undo that. Let's give it like a little LED ring in here. So I'm going to go into Polyfill here because that'll look cooler in Keyshot. So we have no subdivision history. I'm going to go into solo mode here. And right here on this line right here, I'm going to hold down, I'm going to go to my Z modeler brush, hover over an edge, and then I'm going to do a polygroup poly loop, touch that edge, and then just, again, you can keep hitting Alt to kind of toggle through different colors if you want to. And now that it's its own polygroup, I can go back in my Z modeler brush, hover over a face, do Q mesh, polygroup all, and when I pull this out, I'm going to hold down Control, and that's going to give me my own geometry. So I'm going to put this into its own subtool here. So I'm going to hold down Control Shift, and then as long as you have Select Lasso or Select Rectangle, you can just isolate that, and then with everything else hidden, I can go into Split Hidden, and that puts it into its own subtool here. And then I can go into my Z modeler brush, do Q mesh polygroup all. And sometimes when you split something and then you Q mesh it, it kind of does a little glitch there. For some reason, sometimes the history will bring back a little bit of your hidden deleted mesh. So just go into Geometry, Modify Topology, and just hit Delete Hidden, and then it should be okay. And now you can kind of pull that back. Now, one thing is, I know when you pull it back, a lot of times it'll invert the geo, but it looks fine. Just to play it safe, I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom to Display Properties. You can see I have double turned on. Turn that off, and you can see I actually have inverted geo. So I'm going to flip that geo. Then I'm going to hit W. I'm going to touch one of these front faces, so define that straight back surface normal. Hold down Shift, and then I'm just going to push that straight back and just kind of nestle it right in that area here. So if we go into solo mode and then hit D, it'll go ahead and kind of divide that up and look really nice and smooth. And then if I go out of solo mode and I do the exact same thing for this one, they match up perfectly. So in this case, and actually, you know what, let's turn off double. Okay, it's fine. In this case, what we can do is, because we have dynamic subdivisions turned on, if we just hit apply, that'll apply those subdivisions to that mesh, which is fine, which is kind of what we want. So I'm going to turn off polyframe here. I'm going to hit Control D one more time, and then I'm going to do an uncrease all, and then hit Control D, and then maybe Control D one more time. I'm going to Alt tap our little LED thing in here. I'm going to do the exact same thing, dynamic apply, and then Control D, and then do an uncrease all, and then Control D. And then I'm going to Alt tap finally this middle one here, and I was going to do Control D, do an uncrease all. Sorry, I keep going to my custom menu. Control D, and now we have, Alt tap this middle thing too. Control D, Control D, Control D. That's fine. So now we have a pretty slick Pokeball. I think it looks right. I'm trying to compare it here. It looks like if we Alt tap this one and then we hit W, and then just kind of push that back, it looks like it's inset just a tad, and then we'll take this LED and we'll just push that back just a little bit too. Okay, now I think we're pretty good.